Welcome in to Let's Bet It here on Pickswise on this Friday morning. I'm Mark Zeno, joined by Jared Smith as we get you guys set for a big weekend. We have NHL playoffs to get to, some PLL lacrosse, obviously Major League Baseball full slate, and we'll shed a tear with our own friend Brian Scalabrine for the end of the NBA season last night. Jared, welcome in. Great to talk to you. As always, appreciate you spending some time with me this morning, brother. You excited or what?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is what we live for on a Friday. Not a great night for our NBA bets. Scals
No.
got some splaining to do for his Celtics. They were awful
Yeah.
last night, especially in the
Well,
fourth quarter.
they were good for the first 8 minutes of the
Yeah,
game,
for
and then
like
everything
8 minutes.
just went downhill from there.
They thought it was first to 20. They thought they were playing 21. And then once they got to 21, it was over and the game ended. But it wasn't street ball. It was Warriors coronation, I would say. I mean, I don't want to call it a dynasty, but they've now won 4 titles in that span, and they're pretty damn good and pretty damn stacked for next year. So we'll get Scal's thoughts on that. And of course, I mean, in reality, the big part of this show that's exciting, we got baseball picks, right? I mean, everyone loves the baseball.
We do. We will get to better up. And make sure you guys subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. Let us know in the comments what picks you're on or what questions that you certainly have. Make sure to download the Pickswise app, available on the Apple Store and on Google Play. As I said, we got a lot to get to today, and we'll start with our Major League Baseball Better Up segment. The NRFI King fell off of his throne last time we were together, Jared, so I will do my best to get back up on the throne. See, the problem here is, and I'll say this, as soon as we all, and I say we because you guys are part of this too, as soon as we all start getting cocky about my NRFI streak is when I inevitably fall right off of it. So just like we don't talk about Bruno, we don't talk about the NRFI streaks for the King. We would like some silence on it. But let's get it started today with our NRFIs and YRFIs as we normally do right off the top. And you're going after my heart this morning, Jared, with your NRFI, because we go to Coors Field, of course.
I love it. And the Coors Field NRFI has been the soup du jour. And I've theorized this. You agree. It will be profitable at the end of the year. Right now, despite the fact that the YRFI is hit in 18 of 35 games, so 18 and 17, it's the NRFI that's up over 3 units. Despite the fact that you have hit more times than you've missed on the Coors Field YRFI, you would be down 7 units if you blind bet it every game this year. So we're not going to do that. We are going to stay on the NRFI side. Listen, I think this is a really good pitching matchup. The numbers say that there's a little bit of inconsistency with both of these guys, especially Mackenzie Gore, who has a very high walk rate in the first inning and overall. In fact, you're going to hear his name called a little bit later on our Walk This Way parlay. But he's 8-1 of the NRFI this year, and he's only giving up a batting average of 156 in the first inning. So while the walks are a concern, his stuff, especially early in the game, has been very good. Kyle Freeland's, I would say he's probably the Rockies' best pitcher. Maybe Marquez is probably on that list, but Freeland's certainly up there. But his numbers in the first inning have not been good, and I think that's why I got a silly number. I mean, you see it on the screen there, plus 165 over at Bet365. Usually when we bet these, they're plus 130, plus 140. I don't see a lot of plus 165s here. I'm assuming that number will come down throughout the day, so I would bet this now. But again, Freeland, despite the fact that he's giving up over 300 batting average in the first inning, he's still 8-4 to the NRFI this season. So if you multiply those two numbers together, 8-1, 8-4, you get about a 60% implied NRFI rate between those two. And that odds right there on your screen is telling us about 38%. So I'm seeing a massive gap between what the implied odds are for plus 165 and what the actual NRFI implied is if you take their two NRFI rates and put them together. The lineups have been really bad for both of these teams, especially Colorado. They haven't scored a run in the first inning since June 7th, 9 straight games. The Padres, they've had 3 straight YRFIs, but 5 NRFIs prior to that. They only scored 1 run in their last 8. And both of these teams are below average, 29%. Both these teams are below that average mark in run scoring rate in the first inning this year. So I love the price. Obviously, it's Coors Field. Anything can happen. It's a NRFI. Anything can happen. But I think this price is certainly worth a nibble at the NRFI tonight at Coors Field. Late game, 8:40-ish Eastern start time. So you got plenty of time to get it in.
There are certain numbers that just call to you, and plus 165 NRFI would call to me
Yeah.
every single day. All right, one NRFI, one YRFI for me. The NRFI I'm going to hold out on right now. I love where the matchup is, but I don't love the number, and so I want to see if it comes down a little bit. But let's go to San Francisco and Pittsburgh. You get Carlos Rodon starting against Zach Thompson. Both of these guys have been very good NRFI pitchers this year, which is why this is juiced at minus 130 at this point in time. Pittsburgh's offense not very good at scoring at all, let alone in the first inning. But Zach Thompson has done a fantastic job this year, one of the more consistent starters for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he's only been touched up twice in 12 starts this year in the first inning. So I like the matchup of the pitchers here. Don't love the juice. Maybe if it comes down to 125, I can feel a little bit more comfortable to run the risk of it, Jared, but you and I have talked about my limits at minus 120, but it's just something I got my eye on right now. I feel like it's the right side, 130 a little bit juicy, so let's wait and see as we get closer to first pitch if there's any movement on the line. My YRFI will actually tail into one of your picks that we'll get to next here, is Baltimore and Tampa Bay. These are two teams right now that are starting pitchers right now that have 3 more combined starts than you and I do, Jared. Shane Baz going for Tampa Bay, got rocked in his first start in the bigs, and you get for the Baltimore Orioles, Dean Kramer, who has had 2 starts. He's a reliever turned starter. He's been, just coming on out of the bullpen into the starting scene right now, and he's been roughed up in both of his first starts here. So let's look at the number and play it there at minus 110. It's both sides of minus 110. I'm getting coin flip odds. And I'll take the coin flip of both of these offenses to be able to score in the bandbox that is Camden Yards. So give me a YRFI in that game. And I know that you are looking at Baz as well for one of your K props.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to discuss Shane Baz because he's a guy that. So last year he did make a couple. I think he made 3 starts last season, but he did come up last year and he was unbelievable towards the end of the season, just striking out guys left and right. And he was supposed to be, Tampa Bay does this every year or so. They have one of these guys in their minor league system, and they bring him up, and he's just unbelievable. And he was that guy last year. He was last year's like Shane McClanahan from like 2 years ago. But to start this year, I think it was an elbow thing or some shoulder arm thing, and he was placed on the IL pretty early during spring training in March, even though there really wasn't much of a spring training. And it took him a while to come back. He made his first start back from the IL last time out. And you're right, the numbers did not look good in that start against the Twins. He gave up 5 runs and 2 1/3. But one swing, grand slam, accounted for 4 of those runs. So I think, and when you look at his overall start, he retired the first 6 batters that he faced in 20 pitches. And I think the stuff looked really good. Topping out at 99, 96, hovering with the fastball. And I think we are going to see him last a lot longer than 2 1/3 through 48 pitches. I think he'll get into the 60, 70 pitch range tonight. And it's the cutter that really looked good against the Twins. 4 swings and misses in 8 pitches with the cutter. That is his strikeout pitch. That's the pitch that the Orioles, I think, are going to see a lot of tonight. And again, at 4.5, I think we're buying low on a guy that the market really doesn't know a lot about yet. His stuff is as good as Hunter Green's. He is on that level. Maybe he doesn't throw as hard as Hunter Green, but the electricity is certainly there. So plus money on an over 4.5, which is a low number. And again, it's because his pitch count's going to be limited. But I think if he goes 5 innings, he will get 5 strikeouts, 1 per inning. And I feel confident that.
And you're looking at an Orioles team that strikes out more times per game than any team in Major League Baseball right now.
Absolutely. So, that's the matchup is certainly good. And the fact that it's a guy that I think we're getting a plus number on at a point where we're still buying low. Again, the market has only seen him once this year and only a few times last year. So I like that spot. I've got a couple walk props for you too. One of them is juicy. Plus 185 on Michael Wacha. This is an interesting one, Mark, because 60%. You don't like it? That's because you're going with the.
Listen, I don't like it because it may affect my play of the day. So little tease there. I don't get out of the bag yet. I got a wonderful handicap set up. So, but go ahead, Michael Wacha. Yeah. Look,
I think I've got a pretty good handicap on Michael Wacha.
No, listen, I don't disagree. When you see that number out there, you owe it to yourself to take a look at the viability of it coming in.
Absolutely. And when I look at Wacha, it's been a tale of 2 halves of his season. first 6 starts of his season, he's gone over 1.5 all 6 times. His last 4 starts, under 1.5. 2 of them, he hasn't walked a batter. Now, we could go dive into each individual start, see what the strikeout walk rate was in each one. They were about average. I didn't look too in-depthly to it. But the part that catches my eye about this game is Michael Wacha is facing his former team. He was drafted in the first round by the Cardinals way back, I think, in 2010, 2011. He came up in 2012, 7 years with the Cardinals, 151 starts. They know him better than anyone. Goldschmidt, Arenado has faced him multiple times. Obviously, when he pitched for the Cardinals, those 2 hitters were on other teams in Colorado and Arizona. So they've seen Wacha a bunch. And it's just, I'm getting vibes that the Cardinals are going to be very patient. They're a high walk rate team anyways. They're going to be very patient tonight against their former starter. And I think at plus 185, which is implying about almost, 33, 40% hit rate here, I feel confident that I'm going to have a few opportunities to get over this number. Maybe he'll get an early walk and we'll have some chances late. But Wacha over 1.5 plus 185, certainly bet. And in Framber Valdez, I have to bet Framber Valdez's number against this White Sox team. White Sox against lefties is the trend. The White Sox, 15 starts against left-handed pitching this year. 9 of them have gone over 1.5 walks. And Valdez has a 75% hit rate on this number. He's gone over in 9 of 12 starts, widen the sample size, 27 of 39 if you include last season. That's a 69% hit rate. He's walked 3 batters in 3 consecutive starts. He is a bit of a gas can. He's got great stuff, but he can be very volatile. Mm-hmm. And 1.5, I got minus 125 over at DraftKings. I think that's one of my favorite props of the night.
Framber is the color of your energy there, Jared. There you go. There's a little 311.
Little 311 this morning. Fun fact, that was my first ever concert in high school. 311.
Really? You see, look at that. Look at that. All right. 2 other plays I got in Major League Baseball here before we pivot to our good friend Brian Scalabrine, who literally is crying right now. But let's look at 2 things. 1, Yankees and Toronto. Under 9. I'm even seeing this at 9.5 in certain shops. Boy, do I love this. I mean, this is what I really wanted to make my play of the day, but I need to go back to resuming my NRFI status. But Yankees, Toronto, under 9. They've gone under this total in 6 of the 9 games this year. Jordan Montgomery starting for the Yankees, got a sub-3 ERA, a sub-1 whip. The Yankees are on fire right now. They haven't been giving up a lot of runs. They've just played Tampa Bay, a team that, they always have low-scoring games against. If the Yankees don't get like 6 runs in the first 3 innings, this thing will stay under the entire time. That's really all I got to worry about. I would actually double this down and take the under in the first 5 because they're both going to hit. If they get through the first 5 under, they'll get through all 9 under in this spot here with Montgomery on the mound at home. He's been great this year. So love it at even money at plus 100 at under 9. That is just a fantastic price. And then, Jared, I'm going to step into the streak. Why? Just because it's time. The Atlanta Braves have won 14 in a row after a day off yesterday. They get a day game today starting at 2:20 Eastern. And that's part of the handicap here too. If they had a night game and routine, they're on the road. Day games on the road are really weird for teams. And look at this, Jared. Look at the price. And this is moving because last night it was at minus 106 at the Cubs plus 1.5 on the run line. I just last saw it on FanDuel this morning at minus 111. So it's trending in that direction. You don't often see the plus run line that low. When I saw it last night at 106 is where I jumped on it because I wasn't going to wait and I knew it was going to move. Yeah. And this is a spot here where the Braves are starting Charlie Morton, who's been their worst, most inconsistent starter this entire season. And I'm going to take the safest bet in baseball, and that's plus 1.5 on the run line. With the juice being this low, we'll step into the streak, roll the dice, and see what happens.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. Eventually, that streak will end. And eventually, There will be massive regression with Atlanta because they've been playing out of their minds for like a while. All right, I'm going to quickly give you this walk this way parlay. I won't make you sing like I make Lauren sing because I don't think your voice is as good as hers. But
no, I'm terrible.
That's all her. It's tough because a lot of times they pop up new players like right as the show's starting. For example, your buddy Charlie Morton's number just popped up, and I kind of want to put him in because he's, I think, in a better situation than one of these guys. But I will give
Okay.
you the Walker's Way parlay as is now, and if I make changes to it later, I will maybe do another one, or I don't know. I'll just stick to my guns because anytime I change or go late, and I'm an idiot. Michael Lorenzen over 1.5 at Seattle, gone over in 7 of 10 starts. Mariners actually have the highest, fourth highest walk rate this season, which is not something I'd expect with Seattle. Ranger Suarez is the guy I'm kind of torn on. He's starting against the Phillies, or excuse me, against the Nationals. He's on the Phillies. He's gone over an 8 of 12 starts this year, and 3 walks in 3 of his last 4. And then the one I really like, and this kind of goes against my NRFI at Coors Field, but Mackenzie Gore at over 1.5, 80% hit rate on this number this year, and it's his first ever start at Coors. So even though he might get through the first inning, the walks I think will come for Mackenzie. So if I was going to put Morton in, I'd replace Suarez, and I might do like a separate smaller parlay with Morton, Lorenzen, and Gore, but I'll keep Suarez in there for now because the number is strong. And plus 354 on this parlay if you guys want to have some fun with my little walks parlay on a Friday night.
Yeah. Okay. And by the way, Ranger Suarez is a lock for.
He's a gas can too, and I like the number, but so is Morton. Morton, like there's so many great walk options with these pitchers because so many of them are so bad.
For whatever reason, I just can't get into the walk. Like the walk prop feels so negative. I don't know what it is about it. It just seems it's like betting the come line, man.
Strikeout prop. It's the same.
No, it's like betting the come line in craps. It's like you're going against the flow. Like I don't know. You're not. I love the handicap.
You're thinking of the don't pass line. The come line's actually a completely different.
Well, yes, I'm sorry. Don't pass it.
The don't pass line.
You're going against the whole table.
Is more profitable, but it's not as much fun. You're right, but it's a better bet. It's a better bet, but it's not as much fun. I agree with you. Walk props are not fun to watch. It's not fun to watch these games.
I thought it was a better bet last night to back the Celtics at home with their season on the line and an NBA championship on the line, and that did not come through. So let's welcome in our good friend to see if he's crying in his little pot of gold for all of his Celtics. Brian Scalabrine, our NBA analyst here on Pickswise, joins the show. Brian, bud, should we have a moment of silence for the fallen? We are having, because he's on mute, we are having a moment of silence. You see that? You see how that worked out?
How am I on mute?
There you go. Now you're unmuted. It might not be you. It might be the technical. It might just be the basketball gods reminding us that the Celtics choked in a big moment.
Yeah, they were 18-21 to start the season, and there's a reason why they reverted back to that game today. And by the way, I'm not one of those guys that look at it like when the Celtics played bad, I looked at it like, man, the Warriors made them play bad. The Warriors looked at them and said, here's what, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us doing what we want you to do. Where the Warriors were doing their game, the Celtics were playing into the Warriors game. So I give all the credit to Draymond Green and their whole staff. And, the way Steve Kerr pushed the right buttons in that, like with certain guys. I thought the Celtics had a better team. I thought they were younger, more athletic. And it looked like they were worn out, absolutely worn out. Curry and Clay and Draymond, those guys look like they're the ones that had all the energy in the world. And I thought the Celtics were going to win Game 6. And right about, I thought they would play faster. We talked about it yesterday. They need to go over that number. You need to see high assist numbers. You need to see like role players making threes. And you had some high assist numbers, but not enough in that game for the Celtics to be even on that same level.
Yeah, Scal, one more here.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, Scal, one more real quick. The Warriors in the post game seem to be doing a lot of like, we were doubted. People questioned us. People thought that we weren't that good. Like, am I the only one who is not in that camp? Like that's still the Warriors and it's still Steph Curry and it's still Clay and it's still guys who have won 3 titles. Like when all of a sudden did the Warriors get disrespected by everybody that I missed it? Because there was a lot of that vibe coming post game.
Early on, and everyone was like, whoa, look at that number. Like I told you guys, the Warriors to me are the best team in the West. I thought they would smack Phoenix. I thought it would be a series. But I thought, you're not beating those 3 guys. Like everything that we saw throughout this playoff series is like what I remember the Warriors. Like I get it. Like when KD was there, it was like people like use broad strokes, right? KD wasn't there and they lost to the Toronto Raptors. Well, wait a minute. KD wasn't there and they busted up the Houston Rockets. He wasn't there and they swept the Portland Trailblazers. He wasn't there and they won game 5 on the road with KD got hurt, like 10 minutes into the game. So I know what it takes to beat those guys, and the way that they play and their style of play it's hard for you to recognize. Klay Thompson, injured, start the year, did not come back. Draymond Green, injured, back injury, all that stuff. Steph Curry missed all the games, getting ready, came off the bench to start the first round. So I thought it was all rope-a-dope, but a lot of people are like, Warriors are done, too old. Phoenix is like well-oiled machine. A lot of people doubted them. Now, as it's going along, like people say, hey, Steph Curry, Warriors, they look really good. They look really good through the Western Conference. But there was a point where people were like, I don't think the Warriors are very good.
I mean, there's something to be said about being there before. And when you talk about the Suns, they're led by Chris Paul. What is Chris Paul? I mean, as great as Chris Paul is, do not get me wrong, Hall of Famer. What is he known for? He hasn't won a title. That isn't the case with the Warriors. They've been there. They've gotten to the top of the mountain. Celtics, too. They've had opportunities and they've had issues. I won't do that like Mark just did, but, one might call it that. And I guess that is the final question that I have. Is this a Celtics loss or a Warriors win from last night's game? What would you classify that as?
I mean, I think what the Warriors did to the Celtics made them look like they were a JV team out there. It made them revert back to what they were before they went on this historic run when they were 18-21 and they end up going to the NBA Finals. So I give the Warriors all the credit in the world. The Celtics knew what they had to do. You saw it in game 1, moving that ball around, guys getting open shots. They knew how they had to play. They've had these conversations throughout the year, and sometimes the old habits would creep back, and then they would bounce back and have a great next game, win by 20, whatever it was, right? But in this one, I'm going to give the Warriors all the credit in the world. Every defensive possession, they dictated what they wanted the Celtics to do. It wasn't the Celtics were going out there and playing their game. No, the Warriors said, if you're going to beat us, you're going to do it this way. And ultimately, that led to the Celtics, having moments, but not consistent enough. Ball movement wasn't good enough, and they reverted back to those old habits.
Well, to that end, Scal, I mean, you look at this Celtics roster. They have a big 2. Do they need a big 3? I mean, is there a major alteration of this roster that needs to happen in order to elevate them? I mean, I would argue that had Golden State got tripped up by anybody, by Dallas, if Phoenix had made it there by Phoenix, Boston might be the one lifting the Larry O'Brien trophy right now against any of those other teams other than Golden State. Like, I don't know if you want to overthink this and try to look at this roster and go, okay, yeah, maybe you want to replace Al Horford because he's 107 years old, and maybe you want to look at, one or two other pieces here. But is there a major roster reconstruction that is needed for this team to get over the top?
Nah. It's like Tatum and Brown got to be better. That's it. I mean, those guys got to understand, like how to navigate a game when it's not going your way. It's not like a lot of players in the NBA, when things are going well, they can continue to play well and they can do their thing. But when you hit that wall, and I think that wall's kind of started a little bit in Milwaukee, the roller coaster ride, 23-2 runs, 18-2 runs. Like, you're just at the highest level. Like the Warriors went on a 21-0 run. You're not winning games when you give that up, right? So I'm not like, there's no magical, like, unless LeBron comes in and is like, okay, let me settle the guys down. There's not a magical guy out there that's going to settle them down. The ball's still going to be in those two guys' hands. They just got to get better, and they got to trust their teammates more, and their teammates got to make shots, and their teammates got to also have these moments where they got to help break runs. It can't just be Tatum and Brown, hey, please save us. So Ime can't, Ime called 5 timeouts to try to stop that run. And there's you have to have players that can make plays. And those guys have been great throughout the year. They've had their moments. Even Jaylen Brown, I thought was really good in game 6, but those guys have to become better at what they do, trust more, take another step when it comes to the basketball IQ step, where you know how to win and you can execute that. At times they can, but when you go against the best of the NBA Finals, the margins are so small. They're so small that if you make a mistake, that can lead to 15-0 just like that. And that's where And that's where those guys have to improve on. It's managing the game within the game.
All right, what better time than the day after the season ends to bet on the champion for next season? There's 4 teams right now on DraftKings that are favored to win the title. The Celtics and Warriors are 2 of those 4. Brooklyn, LAC, Clippers, the other 2. But I'll be honest, I think it's that next tier below the favorites that interests me the most, Scal. Bucks plus 750, Suns plus 900. Any of those teams, I mean, you can go further down the list. The Heat are 14-1, the Sixers are 14-1, the Grizzlies are 14-1, Nuggets 15-1, Dallas. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of tightly packed, really good teams at the top of that odds board. Are you targeting one at this time to be hoisting the Larry O'Brien Trophy at this time next year?
At that number, I might just like throw it on the Bucks. I mean, to me, the Bucks.
That's what I'm thinking too.
100%. It's the first one. I said if the Bucks aren't at nearly 8-1 for crying out loud, are they not paying attention to who's on that team?
It's like I said, you guys know I love to hedge bets, right? I like to hold numbers at good numbers, and then later on, just kind of like just like protect my bet, right? Like all the Bucks have to do is end up in the Eastern Conference Finals, and you're like 100%. Really making money on that. So I would take the Bucks. I actually think the Bucks are going to win a championship next year. So I think the Bucks probably would have beat the Celtics this year if they had Chris Middleton. And
absolutely.
So obviously before free agency and like Miami landing like some crazy, like crazy player, I think the Bucks are probably the Clippers are the most unique team because top to bottom they have the most talent, but betting on Kawhi Leonard and Paul George's help, I'd much rather bet on the Bucks to win a championship than bet on those guys' help. What are the odds of those guys making it through the playoffs? That's kind of like those odds should be like
the Clippers. You would think those guys are going to miss time. That number will drop, whereas the Bucks could legit just be gangbusters from start to finish, be the number 1 seed, and all of a sudden that number's 3-1 come April, which makes it hard to bet that number in April 3-1.
Yeah, I don't love the Nets.
Neither do I.
Why would you?
I like the Celtics. But I think right now the best number is the Bucks.
Yes.
I mean, Scal, to that end, the Lakers have a massive overhaul to do. And nobody knows what their roster is going to look like. We just know LeBron's going to be on that roster.
Yeah.
Is it wise to take a flyer knowing that LeBron has pulled a rabbit out of his hat before and reconstructed rosters in the offseason in ways that we didn't see coming, and they end up being a lot better than what we thought? So is there any value on LA, or at least just bet LeBron blindly because he's going to be in the conversation more often than not?
No, I wouldn't pick LeBron. I'm not picking that old ass roster. I'm not like Charles Barkley said.
It's going to change though, right? It's got to change.
Are almost the same age. I'm not doing that. Like
LeBron's older than everyone on this call, right?
Yeah, I'm not putting my money there. Plus, I couldn't hold that ticket. Another one I kind of like is Denver. Jamal Murray coming back.
A lot of upside there, especially with Jamal Murray coming back, right?
Yeah. What's their number at? Is it like plus
15-1? Dallas, Denver, and Memphis are all kind of in that, because if you want to flash forward to the East, we think Milwaukee's the best number. Well, who is going to be the team that will be facing them in on the other side, or at least what's the Western Conference Final going to look like? Let's put Golden State in that mix because they look great. Who's the other team? Dallas looked good, and Memphis and Denver. I would say those are the 3 that I would target right there.
Yeah, it's a big step for Memphis, but I think they could do it.
Well, they were in the semis this year, and they gave the Warriors some tough games. They really did. Those were tough games. Those were some tough games.
Are we overlooking Memphis in this spot here at plus 1900?
Probably.
I mean, are we? That number? I mean, I feel like that.
Memphis, I got Memphis at 3,000 to go to the finals, and I ended up. I needed them to beat the Warriors for me to really play around with that, but yeah, I mean, to win it, I mean. I would wait on that. I think Denver would be the team that could have a really good regular season. Memphis could be they're going to win regular season games, so I guess that number could improve. All I look for, you guys know, I don't like betting NBA champions. I like betting teams
the conference
going to the finals. I think that's where you could find real value, and you can find a lot of outs along the way. I do like that. So I think Denver's
Sadly,
numbers
those numbers are not posted yet, but we will call you when they are. Those numbers are not posted yet, but we will call you when they are. Trust me.
Yeah. I like those numbers a lot more. I think there's more value in that. One time I took a parlay, a finals parlay. This is ridiculous. It was in the bubble. It was Oklahoma City, Toronto, plus 30,000. So I was like, wait a minute, Toronto can make a run here. Oklahoma City, who had the best fourth quarter rating, like they ended up losing in the first round. Toronto lost in the second round, but the number was just too good. So I think like I'm gonna look for things like that so I could be in a position where I could spend $8,000 and just on losses, knowing that I could make that money. So I don't like at this point, NBA champs, that's really, really difficult to pick. And there's not a lot of outs, but conference finals, winning the conference finals, there's some outs on that.
Well, and still, again, you got to wait for free agency and the draft to go through to really know what rosters may look like. So you're sort of doing this a little bit blindly. But Brian Scalabrine, we certainly appreciate all the insight all season long, man. It's been a blast working with you. We've had a ton of fun. You've kept it lighthearted and fun, and we've learned a lot. So we certainly appreciate you being with us all NBA season long, brother.
Yeah. Besides the last two games, which I completely got it wrong, I hope
you and me both, brother.
You were fantastic.
I did all right.
You were absolutely fantastic. I tell this to people all the time that do gambling media. The best pairs are when you have people that know the gambling side and you pair them with people that are experts in those specific sports, and you get those, mixtures of opinions, and you get the gambling with the basketball analysis, and you mix it together. It's like peanut butter and jelly, bro. It goes together great, and you were fantastic.
Nothing like peanut butter and jelly.
Nothing like
real quick before I go. Peanut butter and jelly or grilled cheese? Pick them right now.
Oh man, I'm a grilled cheese expert, but peanut butter and jelly gets those two. Yeah, PB. I mean, they're both either one. Really.
Scout, crunchy or creamy?
Crunchy.
Always crunchy.
Yeah.
Always crunchy.
Yeah, I'm more of a grilled.
I do like me some crunchy peanut butter
myself. I like grilled
that's
cheese.
the contrarian pick, though. That's the contrarian pick.
It's sweet or savory. I'll take the savory. I'm all grilled cheese. You guys are the best. And Jared, thanks for teaching me actually how to bet as opposed to just having.
I appreciate you, Scal. The window and the doors. My metaphorical gambling door is always open to you, bud.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scal. Appreciate it, brother. All right, and that'll put a wrap on the NBA season. And from the hardwood out to the field of lacrosse, the Premier Lacrosse League entering into its third weekend here, and it is a blast to watch. It's so much fun. If you guys aren't checking out the PLL, you can do so this weekend. You'll get 2 games Friday night on ESPN Plus between the Water Dogs and the Chrome, and then the Atlas and the Whip Snakes. And then on Saturday, a massive game on ABC at 1 o'clock Eastern, Redwoods and Chaos, followed by the final game, the Cannons and the Archers on ESPN Plus. And joining us now to talk about the Premier Lacrosse League from a betting standpoint and more, Dan Arestia joins us here on Let's Bet It. Dan, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be back with you again. Pumped to talk some more lacrosse.
Yeah, look, 3-0 to your props last week. Stay hot. But what are your first overall impressions through 2 weeks? Overvalued, undervalued teams, where are you looking right now?
One place I'm looking at a team that's kind of overvalued for me is the Redwoods. The Woods came into this season with, they're on paper, absolutely loaded roster. They had, a midfield led by a guy like Miles Jones, who was looking like an MVP level player. And then to start this year, they've just been like, there's no other way. They've just been bad. They scored only 3 goals last week and an offense that looked flat out like nobody knew what they were doing. There was no flow to it. It was really tough to watch. So, and yet somehow this week they're a 1.5 favorite over the Chaos.
Wow.
So, I think coming off of last week and looking at the fact that they're going to be shooting at Blaze Reardon and a pretty good Chaos defense this week, it's tough for me to see how they should be a 1.5 favorite. So I see them as being a pretty overvalued team right now.
Yeah, that is interesting. And that's one of the lowest totals on the board. Tomorrow, Saturday, 4 o'clock Eastern, Redwoods, Chaos, 22 and a hook for that total. And you've got Miles Jones, speaking of low totals and Redwoods struggling to score, under 2.5 points at plus money, plus 130. So if your handicap holds up there, Dan, that's a pretty good number for a guy that should stay under 2.5 at plus money on a Redwoods team that's not scoring very much.
Yeah, that's one of the props I like this week. And, Miles is one of the guys on that team who has been, he's got 5 points in 2 games. So, the 2.5 is what he's averaging. But the places he likes to attack from and do damage, the top middle of the field, coming down the righty wing, really from up top is where he does most of his attacking of the goal. And that's where the Chaos defense is at its best. That's where Blaze Reardon sees, shots the best. The thing about Blaze is his positioning in the net is basically perfect 100% of the time. He's as good as it gets at cutting angles and taking up a lot of the net, using his big body to take up a lot of the net. He loves seeing those alley dodge shots. That's just something he's just going to eat those up. So, I think for Miles to get his points in this game, it's going to have to be as an assist guy. And his vision was great last year. This year, it hasn't been as great. And, the Redwoods, I think through 2 games as a team, have 8 assists. They are not sharing the ball particularly well. It's a lot of guys who are attacking and trying to make something happen. So unless we see a big shift in the way they play offense, I would see Miles staying under there. They made a waiver wire move this week, adding Sergio Salcido, which could spark them maybe a little bit. But Sergio's game is still as another I need the ball to dodge and attack kind of guy. So I don't know if he kind of solves their offensive problem right now.
Dan, you mentioned the Woods only scoring 3 goals. I came last week against the Chrome. One of my favorite bets this week is the Chrome at -1.5 and plus 100. This is the best defense in the league through the first 2 weeks. As I just mentioned, only giving up 13 goals. Sean Scanoni, the former goalie of the year, in between the pipes for the Chrome. And this is a capable offense. It's not going to be a great offense, but it's a very capable one. And I like them in this spot this week, laying the 1.5.
Yeah, I do too. In part because of the reasons you just said. Their defense is awesome. Their defense has given up 6 goals on 48 settled possessions. So this is a team that's going to want to slow that game down as much as they can. And this is the week for their dogs are as banged up as it gets. Their face-off specialist, Jake Withers, out. Chris Sabia, a defenseman, out. Their quarterback on offense, Michael Sowers, out. Steve DiNapoli, a critical defensive midfield piece for them, is out. And Dylan Ward, of course, is still finishing the indoor season. So they're still going with a backup goalie in DeLuca. So I would say if I'm the Chrome in this game, I'm relying on Connor Farrell to have huge day in front of his hometown fans there out on the island. Win possessions facing off for the Chrome, and then just play that nice methodical, slow game where they can grind you down with the offensive weapons that they have. And rely on their settled defense to do some damage against the team missing its quarterback.
I love it. And sometimes the gambling markets kind of give you a little hint. I looked up, this is the first time the Chrome have been favored since last August. So again, when you look at a team that hasn't been favored a lot, and all of a sudden they're favored, you might want to take a little closer look at that one, because the gambling markets, again, tend to tell you some things, give you some hints. All right, you talked about hometowns on Long Island. That means we got to mention my guy, Mac O'Keefe. We talked about him last week, went over his point total. We're going to go back to the well again with my Nittany Lion and, of course, the Syosset native. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Tell me why O'Keefe, in the other side of that matchup against the Woods, is going to go over 2.5 points.
Yeah, well, the hometown thing, it honestly makes a difference in the PLL. It seems like, a guy playing in front of his hometown fans in most sports, it's okay, it's cool. In the PLL, you're there once a year, man. You get to play in front of those hometown fans once, and then you're on to the next city. So the hometown lift has done damage before. Connor Busick a few years ago in front of his hometown fans, I think had a 7 or 8 point game, hit a couple of 2s. Wow. Like, these guys like to play in front of their crowds when they get the chance to. So I'm counting on that to give them a little bit of a lift. And then, we already talked about the Redwoods a little bit. Their offense has been bad. Their defense has usually been a core of that team, has not been as good either. Teams that initiate out of a 2-man set, so out of a pick and roll style kind of offense, which the Chaos loves to do, teams that start out of that are shooting 40% against the Redwoods when they do it. So the Redwoods are not defending the 2-man game particularly well. and they are really getting poor goalie play. Tim Troutner's out to a really poor start. He's saving like 23% or so for the Woods through 2 games. I'm sorry, I think he's over 30. His backup, Jack Kelly, who's gotten some time, is in like the mid-20s. So they haven't been able to make these saves. And what that adds up to me is the Chaos can do what they love to do, initiate with 2-man games and pick games on the left side of their offense where Mac plays, and they shoot, fairly high percentage at a goalie who's not seeing the ball particularly well. And, the way Mac shoots the ball, just from a technique standpoint, he hides the head of his stick behind his body extremely well when he shoots. A goalie does not pick the ball up well out of his stick. And when Mac shoots, he shoots, in the neighborhood of 100, 105 miles an hour. That means you probably pick that ball up before you really get a chance to see it if he has a clean look at the goal. So, I think I like Mac here because hometown crowd and the Chaos strength is happening to be attacking exactly what the Woods don't defend well right now.
Speaking of hometown products, they're playing on my home high school football field at Hofstra University. There is a Long Island product myself there, Dan. So Kellenberg Memorial, right down the block.
Long Island knowledge, drop it on the show.
I am Long Island. I'm Strong Island.
The Hempstead.
Driving my car down Hempstead Turnpike to school every morning, breaking many speeding laws. Speaking of 2-man games here, Dan, I got a couple of player props I want to run by you. Let's go to the Atlas between Eric Law and Jeff Teat. This is the highest scoring team in the league. It's got the highest scoring total this weekend, but Eric Law over 3.5 points at plus 100. This is a guy who shoots 51% shot percentage for his career. He's over that on this season. Scored 30 points in 10 games last year in the PLL, and he's averaged 52 points over the last 3 years in the MLL prior to coming to the PLL. So he's a very reliable goal scoring, and this is a low number. And you pair him with Jeff Teat, I couldn't just pass up the odds here at over 5.5 at plus 150. Highest scoring, most points in the league through 2 games so far with 12. Number 1 overall pick, best scorer, but maybe one of the best pure scorers in all the PLL. But I like both these guys to go over their total in what I expect to be a very high scoring game.
Yeah, I looked long and hard at that Jeff Teat number. The 5.5 is so many points. Like 6 points in a game is a lot of scoring. So, I really, for a while there, I was leaning on it, and I thought about it for the same reason as you. I'm kind of on it as well. I like it at the plus 150. You think of the team they're playing against, the Whipsnakes, who have been like famed, number one, because they're so loaded every year, but their defense has always been so good. Their defensive personnel is excellent. But when you go back and look, last year, 4 different players scored 6 or more points against the Whipsnakes. This year, just last week, Michael Sowers had 5. So, it's possible to see guys have these big individual outings. And the thing about the Atlas, they talk about it. Their philosophy is family style. Everybody eats. They share the ball. Everybody gets onto that scorebook. So I think you could see Jeff Teat get over there. Eric Law is a good one. I kind of like the under on Eric Law. A fellow lacrosse media person of mine, Kyle Devitt, calls him the ghost because it seems like every year nobody kind of noticed Eric Law just sneaking around on the crease. He just kind of appears and scores goals, and he doesn't always get a ton of pub, but he's as reliable as they come. But I look at some of the defenses that are going to be out there and who's going to stop them on the doorstep. A doorstep is where, area right in front of the goal where Eric Law is going to do a lot of his damage. I think that's where you see a guy like Bernlor be a little bit better than most goalies. I think you want to try and get shots from above the net a little more at range. So I could see a guy like Romar Dennis having another good day for them. Chris Gray has certainly been an excellent shooter. There's no shortage of options to score there. I know Eric's got 8 points on the season. He did only manage 1 last week after that 7-point week in week 1. So again, with the philosophy of everybody's going to be involved, it's tough to pick multiple guys to go over big totals unless you really think that the Whips are just going to get totally blown out.
All right, let's go to one more here real quick from a player that I covered from the beginning of his professional career in covering lacrosse, Lyle Thompson of the Cannons. He's over 4.5 at minus 115. Now, he only has played 1 game so far this year, so he's playing his 2nd game. Otherwise, this is a guy who, from my money, still is top 2, if not the best lacrosse player on the planet at this point in time. So you're getting this 1 o'clock national game on ABC. If you didn't know who Lyle Thompson was before, by the end of this game, you're going to know, because they're going to be calling his name a lot. This is not an incredibly tough number for Lyle Thompson, because he is such an adept passer. He's an incredible shooter. And even though he's small, Dan, you know he can use that body to find openings and spaces, and he's quick as hell. And so I love Lyle Thompson today, or this weekend, rather, over 4.5.
Yeah, Lyle's a good one to watch too. I think, early in the week we were all kind of waiting for the injury report on Lyle and on Grant Ament. And then before the injury report came out, they flexed the Archers Cannons game to ABC and like the primetime spot. And we were like, okay, I think that means Lyle and Grant are going to be healthy, because those are the guys you want at ABC. Those are your MVP level guys. So I think Lyle should be good to go. The injury he had, it looked like he had a little like a small wrap or a little air cast on one of his wrists. But I think he's going to be okay to go. Last year, he carried an injury to his calf, which I think slowed him down. This isn't an injury that would do that. He can still generate his leverage. He can run by guys. He can do all those things that make him as mobile and as dangerous and as balanced. And that's what makes him so dynamic. So you look at how the Archers might try and stop a guy like Lyle. Individually, there's basically nobody in the world who's going to stop Lyle one-on-one. You need to play strong team defense. You need to be able to send help quickly. And then it's just about who you want to help off of. The way that Cannon's offense is built is, all right, Lyle draws a lot of attention, and then we have Ryan Drenner, Shane Jackson, Jake Ficarro, Asher Nolting has been really, really good so far. These are all guys that Lyle will find, and they can all shoot the absolute heck out of the ball. They can bring it. So, I think Lyle can get to that number. I think I would see him doing it more with assists than goals this week. I think this is a smart defense from the Archers with a guy like Graham Hossack. Matt McMahon is a very smart defenseman who can, orchestrate the 6-on-6 defense well. So I would say, I could see Lyle going over, but I think it'll be more as a helper than a goal scorer.
Dan, one of the things you'll learn about me, I love the futures market. It's one of my favorite places to swim, even though it's a high theoretical hold. I think there is value available, especially in markets like this that, again, not an increasing amount of public handle that's going to skew the market in one direction. But when I look at the team futures, we can start there, and then we can go to the player futures too. Been a couple weeks now. PLL championship still. Atlas, the favorite at plus 310. And there's a pretty big gap there between the Atlas and the other teams on the second tier, Whipsnakes, Archers, all 5-1. That's about a 10% gap in implied odds. Do you think the Atlas are a worthy favorite? I mean, they're crushing the league in terms of offense, 33 goals in 2 games, but are they a worthy favorite to hoist the title, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'd have them as a favorite right now. It's kind of feels like the Atlas and then kind of this blob of like 6 teams and then the Redwoods until they figure it out. Everybody else has kind of shown you that they can beat anybody. It's just that kind of league where anybody beats anybody. But the Atlas are going to be favored every week until somebody puts it to them. And, there's no part of their game right now where they've been weak. Their transition defense has been excellent. They don't give up much in the way of transition or fast break shots, let alone goals. Trevor Baptiste is facing off for them at a level that is going to have him on the MVP podium at the end of the season. Whether he wins it or not, it'll be tough to say. But, he's facing off at a clip right now that's incredible. He's got 5 points as a face-off guy in 2 games. It's nuts to see what he's doing. So they're going to have the ball a lot, and their offense is deadly. And, if I'm putting an MVP list together right now, I've probably got Jeff Teed at the top. Trevor Baptiste is somewhere around 2 or 3. Like
2-1.
Like the MVP list is going to be loaded with Atlas guys. This is a couple years ago in the 2020 season, the Whipsnakes were playing like this, where everybody was just nobody could touch them. And that was a year, I think, at one point the Whipsnakes had 6 or so of the 10 MVP favorites. Like their team was just so loaded. That's what the Atlas feels like to me this year. I think they're that good.
He's Dan Artesia helping us out with the Premier Lacrosse League. Don't forget to check out the Premier Lacrosse League this weekend. On Friday night, 2 games on ESPN Plus, Water Dogs and Chrome, Atlas and Whipsnakes. And then Saturday, the huge game on ABC between the Redwoods and Chaos, final by the follow game, Cannons and Archers. So let's look for this great weekend of professional lacrosse. Dan, thanks for the time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right. From the field sport that sometimes it's referred to as hockey on foot to the ice version of hockey on ice. Game 2, NHL, I know, Jared, you're not with us tomorrow, but run down real quick your thoughts on the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, I mean, we got into it yesterday. Lauren took her victory lap, and I think it was deserved. The Avs were better for the majority of the game, but I think the Lightning, again, showed the ability to make adjustments and slow the game down in key moments in that third period when it was scoreless. I think there's only one way to bet it right now from my perspective, and that's to take the Lightning on the series line at plus 240. My theory or my strategy all along was to bet the Lightning in both games in Colorado. If they won game one, we would stop. If they didn't win game one, we would bet them again in game two. And we would hope for the split because they're going to be underdogs. Not sizable, not as sizable as they were in game one. Slightly shorter underdog in game two. But my theory is still that this is going to be a long series. And I think the Lightning have the ability. They have the goaltending. And I think they have the coaching to slow this game down a little bit more and not get off to the dismal start that they got off to in game one. Colorado came in, they blitzed them, 3 goals in the first period. They had a 5-on-3. They scored 2 goals in the opening 9 minutes. And then Tampa made the adjustments after the first period, and then the game slowed down. And Colorado still outplayed them for most of the game. They got the overtime goal very early. But I think Tampa Bay is a very live underdog here, and I did bet the series price at plus 240 for 1 unit. I will wait till tomorrow to bet the money line for a unit as well, just in case. I don't like to bet the money line until game of, day of, when we see any movement. But I am going to expose myself a little bit more to the Lightning tomorrow night. If they lose tomorrow and they look bad losing tomorrow, I'll reassess. But I think Tampa Bay right now, in my eyes, is still a very live underdog in this series.
For what it's worth, Jared, for game two, 70% of the bets on the Lightning on the puck line plus 1.5. However, 60% of the money on Colorado on the puck line. So make of that what you will. All right, let's pivot from there to our our Pickswise 3-star plays of the day on the website, and we'll give out our own plays of the day. But Jared, what is on the site today on Pickswise.com as the 3-star play of the day?
Yeah, I saw a total. Hold on, I have to go refresh my page really quick here. I did see a total on the board between the Cubs and the Braves. Wise guy, Matt Weisenfeld, giving out a 3-star there. And that's all we got right now. But, of course, we're following the U.S. Open as well. And Rory McIlroy's great start because Diane's 3-star play on Rory is front and center as well. So lots of excitement this weekend. Tennis, golf, and, of course, baseball. So go check out Wise Guy's total on the Braves Cubs game tonight.
And while we're giving out 3-star picks, our plays of the day, and you're staying right on the links and the golf course here today.
Yeah, I mean, this is the U.S. Open, people. This is what we live for. The head-to-head matchups, in my eyes, have always been the most profitable, the biggest edges on the board in the golf markets. The outright markets can be very, very finicky and a very high hold percentage. The finishing position markets can be good if you could pick the right, dark horses to, reach up and grab a top 20 or a top 40. But to me, the 3-ball markets, especially because you get 3 golfers, so there's a little more equity to go around, you get better prices, and of course the head-to-heads, which we'll get into over the weekend. But I've got a 3-ball for you today. It starts in about 2 hours. I'm seeing 1:14 p.m. Eastern time, tee time here today, between Max Homa, Jordan Spieth, and Adam Scott. We are going to take Homa in this matchup at plus 150. So Max, who didn't have the greatest scoring day yesterday at 1 under, he's in the mix, but not, 3 under, 4 under like the leaders did. But he led the field in strokes gained approach, gained over 4 strokes over the rest of the field with his approach shots yesterday. That is vital at any course, especially at a major championship that's long and it's very difficult, especially in the rough. Jordan Spieth is really the fade here. So rumor going around Brookline is that Jordan's fighting a bit of an illness. I don't know what kind of illness, but that's what I'm reading. That's what I'm seeing. And he was average yesterday, I would say. And he's not putting it very well, which is something that he needs to do in order to succeed. It's one of the best parts of his game. He lost the stroke and a half on the field with his putts yesterday. Adam Scott, I think that's obviously the caboose of this matchup. Certainly some regression after a better than expected 1 under yesterday. Again, I would not have expected Adam Scott to be in red figures after a very difficult day at Brookline yesterday, but he was. So I'm going to expect some regression there. I think Home is going to top this group. And I think Jordan Spieth is eating up too much equity because of his name recognition, and that's why we're getting a very favorable price, I think, on Max Homa. So I'll take the plus 150 Homa over Spieth and Scott this later this afternoon in the U.S. Open. Round 2, 3-ball.
Nothing worse than a homer. Trust me. I kid. All right, my play of the day. And as much as I do love the Chrome -1.5 in the Premier Lacrosse League and really love the Yankees Toronto under 9, I am going to go back to my bread and butter of a NRFI between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Boston Red Sox. And I love this formula. I've used it often, and it seems to have worked well for me, where you get two teams that are in the top 10, top 12 in first inning run scored percentage, but yet you get two high-level starters facing each other, and you get plus money on the no run in the first inning. That's what's going on here. St. Louis is 9th overall in the league in first inning run scored percentage, and Boston is 12th. However, St. Louis on the road this year, bottom 10 in the league, 9th lowest in first inning scored percentage at just 19.3%. It's opposite for Boston. Like I mentioned, 12th overall, but at home this year, 5th lowest first inning score percentage at just 20.6%. Our starters tonight, Adam Wainwright for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's got a 2.84 ERA on the season. He's got a 3 ERA on the road. He has been touched up in 4 of 12 starts this year, but 3 of those, 2 times to the Brewers, 1 time to the Cubs, both of those top 7 teams at first inning run scored percentage. And now for the Boston Red Sox, Michael Wacha. At home this year has been literally lights out. He's got a 0.86 ERA at home. His whip is 0.85. He has not allowed a first inning run at Fenway Park this entire season. I'm getting plus money here on this no-run first inning between the Red Sox and the Cardinals. Let's hammer it.
I love it. Listen, the NRFI king. I'm the YRFI king. I have not put, it's going to be my second straight day of not betting a YRFI. I'm going to sit like a mother hen trying to hatch her eggs on my 8 consecutive YRFI streak. But listen, don't force it if you don't got it, right? I'm not going to put that streak on the line for a garbage pick.
It doesn't have to go down that way. So it's been a lot of fun today here on this Friday. Of course, we will be back tomorrow doing it all over again with a brand new cast. Jared, you have a great weekend. Good luck with all of your selections. Give him a follow on Twitter at Jared Lee Smith. I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. This is another edition of Let's Bet It. Now you guys go bet it, go get it. Best of luck today.